since we got some of the sanding done, thanks to some help from my daughter. We're now wiping it down, getting all the dust off, and we'll be prepping it for paint. I started out with 220 grit. That's not really enough for some of these big scratches, so I ended up going to 120 grit, and then I'll do another round of 200 grit or so. Just want to take a look at, see how it's looking cleaned off. Alright, got the first coat or two of the paint on. Went on okay. It's looking better anyway, but might need a couple of wet sands and a couple more coats. If I get around to it, I might not bother. It's probably good enough. Alright, well, the taillight arrived from eBay. It's right here. Of course, I'm going to put it where the factory taillight would go, which is right around here. But it's too narrow. It won't connect into these rubber grommet things. So what I'm going to do is use the factory taillight housing and kind of connect this light into here, which means it'll be in a housing that correctly connects into the rubber grommets. However, in removing it, I broke off one of the studs that holds it into the rubber grommet, and I hope I haven't lost it yet. Here it is. So I got to glue that back on, and then before I put this light in, I don't want it to have this ugly white background, so I'm going to paint that red with some of the Krylon Fusion stuff I got, which will also be used on the fenders probably later today. So glue this on, paint it up, screw some holes for this, and then do the wiring, and the light should be working. I also glued the peg back on the light housing and gave it a quick coat of paint, drilled some holes, and I'll give it one more coat of paint and it'll be ready for the light to be affixed to it. So of course I get the light set up in its new housing and it looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I greased up these things so that hopefully I don't break a peg again next time. Try to wire it up, and of course the wires are just a little too short to connect to these guys here. Right connections, just a little too short, unfortunately. So I've just got some scrap wire I had in the garage. I'll extend the LED light a little bit. I don't want to mess with the factory wiring, so I'll extend the LED light a little bit for the wiring, and then should be able to connect that way. I'm going to use, as you probably would have guessed, these little connectors here to extend the wires using that extra white component over there. So we'll try that. Alright, well, I got the wiring done. You can see I taped it all up, but I had just an extra length of electrical wire spliced in there, connecting the new LED taillight to the existing factory wiring. It's kind of aimed down a little bit. I'll put the rear seat on and see how that looks, but it looks a little aimed down. I might flip this upside down so that it's a little more visible. We'll see. Now that I got the light taken care of, I noticed this was all rough and looking a little unloved, so I'm going to give it a quick hit of just some gray paint I had lying around, and that'll look a little better at least. Alright, well, I did paint the affected area at the back. Looks a lot better now, as you can see. Then I had a bright idea. Why don't I just go a little crazy on the frame? It was looking pretty rusty here and there, just kind of like little cheetah marks everywhere of rust spots. So I ended up spraying with this. It was silver wheel paint for my wife's car, and it actually looks pretty sharp on the frame. Not only does it cover the rust spots, but bright metallic silver like a bass boat looks pretty cool. So pretty happy with that result. Alright, got the silver all painted up. As I mentioned earlier, I flipped this light around. It's okay. I'll show you what the light looks like with it on. It's a little dim, but it is, you know, bright daylight. So I might flip this upside down again and see. Two parts arrivals today. First, we've got this guy, my welded up Nerf bar bracket that my buddy down the street welded up. I just left it in the envelope, I didn't ship it. So I'll give that a little bit of paint so it doesn't rust, and then put that back on. And then actually by mail, the company I ordered the air filter from, remember this one? This was the wrong one. I contacted them and they said, our bad, we'll just ship you a new one, we don't want the old one back. So that was nice. I'll put a link in the description below for who that was. Thanks to them. It's another original Honda part, looks like. So that's nice. Part number, in case you were wondering, it's right there. So let's put those on. Alright, time to mount that bracket that my buddy welded. I've got it kind of test fitted in. I pushed the Nerf bar down really hard and then hammered it in from behind like this so that the hole lines up for the bolt, of course. And I've got the two locking bolts, or regular I've got the two bolts in here ready to go. And then of course I'll put this bolt in with the nut and this bolt in with the nut as well. Tighten it all down. Hopefully it doesn't break again, we'll see. But so far so good. I'm putting some caliper grease that I had lying around onto the bolts here and here, and also onto the bolts on the top of the Nerf bars. They were getting a little rusty when I took them out and kind of making me nervous, so I'll figure I'll try that. Maybe it'll help next time if I have to take it apart again. Alright, I got everything tightened up, or at least so I thought. I did notice that there was a bit of play in the front of the Nerf bars, so I tightened down these two nuts right here. They're on like a U-bolt setup. Tightened those down a little bit. That helped a lot, but I was still noticing some flexing in the Nerf bar, and I noticed that when I would move this, the back side would still flex and move a little bit, even though this was in there as tight as can be. So I figured out, or I'm guessing, that the threads run out at some point in this frame, and that it was at the end of the threads, yet there was still some play or looseness left at the head of the bolt. So I'm stacking up some washers. I'm going to put it back in now with the new washers. Hopefully that will allow it to get tight up against this welded bracket without running to the end of the threads in the frame here, which is what I'm guessing was happening. So that should help. And of course I tightened up the U-bolts on the other side of the Nerf bars as well, and checked these bolts as well on the other side, and they're fine. So one more time, let's see if we can get this tightened up for good. Alright, success. Sorry for the vacuum noise in the back. My neighbor's vacuuming, but the washers worked, the bolt is tight, and there's no more flex in the Nerf bar, so it should be a lot more confidence inspiring than it ever was even before I bought it. Can't wait to try it out. I'm going to go for a little spin here in a bit. Alright, as for the filter, I don't know how to get that off. You can see what I've done ahead of time. This was just temporary, so not get any gunk in there. And we'll have the new one, hopefully with the same hose clamp, go right in. Let's try it out. Yep, looks like it's gonna fit. Sweet. Oh yeah. All right. Time for the hose clamp. We'll tighten it back down just the way it was. We'll be all set. All right, got the new filter on. It's tightened down. And that was a quick, easy fix. I don't know what this metal canister one was. The thing that was up there. I don't know what this metal canister was. You can kind of see through it, but it doesn't seem like it would protect from fine dust and dirt. I'll be riding a lot of trails behind other riders, and I don't want all that dust kicked up by the rider in the front to go into my engine through the filter. So just some peace of mind. No loud sound?
Yeah, the one where you put it really hard.
Alright.
Like, it's all the way, like, here.
You stand over there where it's safe. Go. The last thing I want to talk about for today, I want to get one of those crossbar pads for my handlebars, partly because I don't want my head hitting this or my chest if I flip over the front, but also just because I think they look cool. So that'll be one more thing I order. Hopefully I'm running out of things to order here, but that's next on my list for ordering.